So if we're given a lot of fat, we can break that down, metabolize it, and use it as fuel. If we're given some protein, we are capable of breaking that down, metabolizing it, and using it as fuel. Carbohydrates, same thing.
It's Evie here. Welcome to EML Radio, where we are always talking truth. All of those things you need to hear that nobody else is willing to say.
Hey there. Welcome back to EML Radio. Today we are going to cover carbohydrates. Really just a Carb 101 course for all of you to help get rid of the lies and misconceptions around carbohydrates. And I'm going to give you some really easy, understandable facts around carbs, what they are, why your body needs them. And then we're going to finish up with how to properly incorporate carbohydrates in your diet so that you don't store on excess body fat, and you can actually do some pretty easy adjustments of when you eat your carbohydrates throughout the day that are going to take you a long way, not only just improving your overall health, but then also help keep body fat down. So before we get started, I'm going to give you this disclaimer though. Carb timing is one of these things that I would refer to as almost like busy work. So what I mean by that is the big work is kind of boring. There's not like a whole lot to talk about there. It's just a lot of work. And the big work when it comes to your nutrition, improving your overall health, and ultimately creating optimal wellness, it's things like, do you eat real food? Let's just start with that. Do you eat stuff out of a package all the time? Or do you actually eat things that Mother Nature provided? That's the first step. In addition to the food you're eating, are you eating too much? Some of you, are you eating too little? And then all those other optimal wellness factors, like, are you getting adequate sleep? Do you get quality sleep, uninterrupted? Are you managing your stress? Are you socializing and doing things that are fun and creative in your life? Do you get enough sunshine? Do you stay away from negative thoughts? So I teach to all of those principles first. So if you get shit sleep all the time and you eat packaged foods at least half of the time, you probably at this stage of the game don't really need to be worried about when you eat carbohydrates. So this is the disclaimer in this. I'm going to give you some strategies, really easy to implement, on how to adjust the timing of your carbohydrates, but you got to promise me that you're not going to get lost in this little busy work and think that if you just take your oatmeal out of the morning and put it to the evening, that now you've improved your health. Because that's just not the way it works. You've got to make sure that you're not forgetting about all those basics and then skipping to these little easy things, right? Or that you're going to adjust the timing of your carbohydrates, but at the end of the day, you still eat, a package of gummy bears or a lot of sugar or crackers or chips or all that other crap. So I'm willing to share this knowledge with you guys, but you got to promise me that you're not going to just implement this and forget about all the rest. There's my soapbox. So let's just start with what are carbohydrates in the first place, because there's a lot of misconception and people use the word carbs improperly most of the time. So carbohydrates have kind of been demonized, and it's really unfortunate because the only kind of unhealthy, we'll just label them as that, carbohydrates are those that come from a box and that are manufactured or baked goods. But everybody kind of in their mind lumps carbohydrates together. And the truth is, we need carbs. We need carbs to, for one, easily accessible energy. And we need them to think clearly and to focus. But the trouble is that most people's sources of carbohydrates are just that. They're baked goods, they're a lot of grains or a lot of starches that are unnecessary and cause us to be kind of carbohydrate dependent, where our body at a cellular level needs carbohydrates in order to feel like it has any energy. So although carbs really a good portion of them can be left out of the diet, especially for like in this country where you've got, 45% of Americans obese and upwards of 60% of people overweight. And even people that look skinny typically in this country have high levels of body fat and not high enough levels of lean mass. So for us, we do want to keep most of those processed or starchier carbs out of your diet because they're unnecessary at best. And I'm going to kind of explain to you a little bit further on why. But your basic understanding of what a carbohydrate is it is one of the three macronutrients that are essential for life. So the three macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbs. Carbohydrates have always come to us in the form of fruits and vegetables. They're the sugars and the starches and the fiber that come from plants. Unfortunately, what we've done is, as humans, we kind of think we're going to outsmart the system and we're just going to overproduce a ton of carbs in the forms of grains, highly processed things like rice, corn. We did that with good intentions, thinking that we were going to feed the world, but ultimately what we ended up doing was destroying the health of the world. So, carbohydrates, clear your mind of using the term carb to describe just plain sugar or processed foods. Change that in your mind and change it in your vocabulary to embrace that carbohydrates are good and they are necessary for your body, but they should be coming from a natural source. They should not be refined or baked in any way. So they shouldn't have to change form from their original form. That is the carbohydrates that we want to be focusing on in our diet. Let me kind of give you an overview just real quick about where we have become kind of what we would call carbohydrate dependent. So just some basic biology here, guys. We are born metabolically flexible. So it just makes sense, right? We're born and we are meant to survive. So our body is capable of using a variety of different macronutrients as an energy source. So if we're given a lot of fat, we can break that down, metabolize it, and use it as fuel. If we're given some protein, we are capable of breaking that down, metabolizing it, and using it as fuel. Carbohydrates, same thing. So this is why also think back, like a lot of kids, so long as they're not introduced to like a highly refined, high sugar diet, will stay really thin, right? It's because when we're young, we're born with the ability to burn all of those macronutrients efficiently so that our body can survive and fuel itself. But what happens is that because of the modern American diet, we have high levels of processed foods that people consume. So what happens is your body becomes reliant on using carbohydrates only as fuel. So at a cellular level, when we eat a lot of processed foods or just simply too high amounts of carbohydrate, what happens at a cellular level, our body just kind of forgets how to burn fat as fuel and how to use protein as fuel. So then what happens is we just don't really know how to get any energy without having carbohydrates. That is a bad place to be. So carbohydrates are essential for some quick energy, but the last thing we want, and what has really led us to the health epidemics that we have now and the obesity rates that we have now, is that people's bodies do not know how to use anything but carbohydrate as fuel. So I would encourage you guys to pay close attention to how you feel throughout the day when you eat different foods. One way for you to kind of tell if you are carbohydrate dependent, or what I would call a sugar burner, is that if you don't have some kind of starchy carb or some kind of sweet, you don't feel like you have any energy. That is just 101, a really easy way for you to tell if you are carb dependent. And the reality is most of you listening to this probably are, even if you don't have a weight problem. So carbs, necessary, starchy carbs, boxed carbs, grains, those type of baked goods, breads, pastas, we rely way too heavily on, and it really changes our body's ability to metabolize things like fat and protein. So we know that we want carbs. We know that we want them to come just from nature and not have to be refined or processed in any way. So how do we incorporate those into our diet? There are some really easy ways for you to time that throughout the day, for you to make sure, for one, that you're not storing unused carbs. Because here's how your body works. You eat something, and let's say you eat 2 pieces of bread, right, on a sandwich. If your body doesn't have any need for that carb in an immediate energy output, what happens is you don't have some kind of like side tank on your body that's just like, oh, we'll just keep it here until we need it. It's not how the body works. If your body does not have an immediate need for that fuel source, it just breaks it down and stores it as fat. So this is, oh my gosh, this makes me crazy, where we got it so wrong. And I'm not really sure who even came up with this just ass backwards idea. It's probably been 2 decades now, telling people to eat your carbohydrates first thing in the day. It is the worst advice you could give the general population imaginable. So have you done anything when you first wake up in the morning? Let's just break this down into just like really common sense. Have you done anything? Probably not. You've been sleeping for 7, maybe even upwards of 9 hours. Your body has been completely at rest. So your muscle glycogen is totally topped off. You haven't done anything that's going to require any replenishment. So the worst thing that you can do is eat carbohydrates first thing in the morning. But think about, how many of you out there listen and go, well, I thought I was eating a healthy breakfast because I eat a bowl of oatmeal and a banana. I can tell you in over a decade of my coaching practice that was the majority of people. And that's just as a side note why I absolutely hate the comment, well, I eat pretty healthy. Because I really just don't even know what that means. Pretty healthy could mean like you just don't eat McDonald's. Right? That doesn't mean anything. You've got to think at a little higher level than that. So if you're eating a banana and oatmeal because it's healthy first thing in the morning, I can tell you that you pretty much consumed about your entire carbohydrate requirement, even if you're just trying to maintain your current weight. in that simple meal, you have probably consumed almost your daily requirement of carbohydrate. And then we're not even going to get into it today, but how many hidden sugars are in all your other foods that you eat throughout the day. This is why we're overly fat. This is why we're always tired. And this is why our health is diminishing. We cannot be starting our day with sugar. And that's exactly what carbohydrates are. So we're going to really hone in here on breakfast. My absolute favorite teaching point from the late, great Charles Poliquin, strength coach, is that the first thing you put in your mouth each day, given that it's food, will dictate your neurotransmitters throughout the whole rest of the day. So what does that mean? What are neurotransmitters? Neurotransmitters are basically just little messengers that signal your body, signal your nervous system on what chemicals and what hormones to produce. So carbohydrates first thing in the morning do not give us the proper or optimal neurotransmitter production. The two most important things that we want transmitted first thing in the morning is going to be dopamine and acetylcholine. Now, don't tune out on me here, guys, because I'm going to get a little science geeky. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. All you need to think about, and you already know this, dopamine is the thing that makes you feel happy, right? It's like your happy hormone. And acetylcholine, probably one you're less familiar with, is what gives you mental focus, mental clarity, good memory retention. So those are the things that we want first thing in the morning. And you do not get those produced if you eat a carbohydrate breakfast. Those two things are produced by protein and fat. So what should your breakfast look like? If we're going for, I want high levels of dopamine and I want high levels of acetylcholine because I want to feel good and be in a good mood and have happy thoughts, and I want mental focus. That's the shit that makes you productive throughout the whole rest of the day. So you get those from protein and fat. So when you start your day, what should your breakfast look like? It should look like a grass-fed, free-range, good quality animal product protein and good, healthy fat. And then for your carbohydrate in that meal, you want to stick solely to things that are micronutrient dense. Think deep, colorful, green vegetables. That is the perfect breakfast. But think about how many people actually eat that way. Not very many. The typical breakfast is one of two things. The thing I just said, either toast, cereal, even if it's whole grain, right? Highly processed. Whole grain just means highly processed. That's the fact, right? Oats and some kind of fruit. That is what the vast majority of people start their day with. Well, or the other option is always, this is my favorite, and don't even get me started on this soapbox, protein shake. Fucking liquid meal first thing in the morning. Okay? I'm going to break that down for you too and why you want to stay away from that. Okay. So whether you drink a shake first thing to start your morning, or you have a carb breakfast, because after all, you've been told that eat your carbohydrates in the morning so you can burn them off. That is not the way your body works. It's simple biology, guys. That is not how your body works. Your body doesn't just store it until it needs to burn it. Okay? What happens instead is that you've effectively increased your blood sugar. So how many of you feel like this? You eat your quote unquote healthy breakfast of whole grain toast and a banana, and you feel pretty good afterwards, right? You get a little boost, like I have some energy now. And then at about 10 o'clock or a couple hours after eating that, you just feel like, whoa, in the tubes. And now you need another carbohydrate to get your energy back. what is happening there is you are elevating your blood sugar first thing in the morning. The worst thing we can do to ourselves from both a health standpoint and a weight loss standpoint is for us to allow our blood sugar to do this, peak and then drop throughout the day. So many diseases associated with that, metabolic disorders like diabetes, insulin resistance, not to mention a bunch of others, right? And you basically end up feeling like shit when that's happening. You feel tired, you feel moody. So our goal is to get rid of these big, huge spikes and valleys in our blood sugar, and we want to keep our blood sugar as consistent as possible. So again, what makes sense? What keeps your blood sugar stable? Fat and protein. So that breakfast, guys, is 100% the building block of how your entire day is going to unfold. So then let's just take it one step further, even further than eating those real carbohydrates, oats and everything else, and fruit that people are eating in the morning. The worst thing you can do is blend all that shit up and drink it. Because we need to have low impact on our blood sugar, right? And from a health standpoint and weight loss standpoint, the two most important factors are what we know, gut health and hormone balance. So gut health happens when we do this. We chop our food. While we're chopping it, we smell it, we cook it, we start smelling it, we produce saliva. That helps kickstart digestive enzymes that are necessary for proper gut health. So that what happens is you've now signaled your body, hey, some food is coming. Right? And you've given it enough time versus just dumping a shake, everything's already broken down for you. Right? Your body's not going to extract anything from that shit. So now you've completely subverted the whole entire natural digestive process by skipping the chewing and the smelling and the cooking. Now that does not mean that you need to spend an hour chopping and cooking every morning, right? You food prep one day of the week and then you have things readily available. As you even heat it up in the microwave, you smell it, your body knows that food is coming. But what happens when you blend up that protein shake, which by the way, I am going to argue until the day I die that it is not faster than having a whole food meal. It's just not. Hard-boiled egg and a couple of sausages and a little bit of broccoli or spinach or anything else is just as quick and easy as you making up a shake, right? Cleaning those vegetables, cleaning those fruits, blending it up, having to clean your Vitamix or your blender, that is not faster. And don't even get me started there. I've been arguing that for over a decade. People still aren't listening. I'm not going to give up on it though. So you really are bypassing proper gut health and proper digestion by blending up your breakfast in the morning. Not to mention, here's another rule of thumb that I like to throw out there for people. If you're going to make a shake, okay, let's just say you're going to go, well, I know, Evie, it's not great, but I'm still going to do it. You put your protein powder in there, okay? Then you are probably blending up more fruits and vegetables than you would actually be able to tolerate if you were trying to eat them. That is not good, guys. So if you're going to make that shake, and I highly recommend you don't, especially first thing in the morning, is that you can't put more shit in there than you would actually be able to digest and break down if you were to eat it. It's just a really good rule of thumb. And then last note on this is when you have blended up or juiced that food, you have done all of the work that your gut was supposed to do. So for one, the nutrients are already all busted up for you. Your body does not have to work to slowly extract the nutrients from those foods. So when you drink a shake, for one, your body didn't even know it was coming because you had no ramp up in saliva and smelling it and getting those enzymes going. So you have no digestive enzymes that work in your gut. You dump a protein shake in there. it's all liquid form. So it is not staying in your gut long enough, guys, for you to even extract the nutrients from it. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I'll leave that up to you guys, but I would highly encourage you to rethink the shake first thing in the morning. And for those of you that are trying to lose weight, man, that is probably the number one thing you could do, would get the shakes out of your diet, right? You're always going to feel somewhat dissatisfied. Who wants to fucking drink their food, right? People want to eat. Like, we're humans, we're meant to eat. That's how we feel satisfied. You're constantly going to feel discontent if all you're doing is like drinking your food. Right? Plus, nutritionally, it's just so void of all of the natural processes and extraction and time period it should take you for you to digest your nutrients. Okay? So let me just wrap that up for you when it comes to breakfast. We want dopamine production and we want acetylcholine production, which happens when we eat an animal-based protein. Now, good quality, right? Really good quality. And high quality, naturally occurring fats. And for your carbohydrate, you're trying to keep that blood sugar as stable as possible. Keep starchy carbs out of your early portion of the day. Stick with greens. So let me just give you one example of like a absolutely beautiful breakfast. A beautiful breakfast would consist of some eggs or some high quality sausages or ground meat with spinach, broccoli, chopped up and thrown in there, and a half an avocado. That breakfast right there is absolute perfection. So that's how you're going to want to start your day. Now, what do we do with carbs throughout the whole rest of the day? This gets a little variable based on your activity level. So for most of you, and I'm just going to make this assumption because the vast number of Americans don't move enough. So if you are not highly active or doing prolonged workouts, now I want you to think like athlete level, then you do not need to be doing a post-workout shake or high levels of carbohydrate post-workout. You do need some carbohydrate for muscle replenishment and to help deliver that protein, right, for muscle repair. But you do not need some kind of formal post-workout. So instead, what you want, and especially if you have weight loss goals, is after your workout, allow your body temperature to come back to normal. Make sure your breathing is normal. And then you sit down and you have a whole food meal that is once again balanced between protein, healthy fat, and a little carbohydrate. Lots of vegetables. And as a side note, from a digestive standpoint, that meal, middle of the day or post-workout, sometime during your active hours, that is the time that you want to be consuming raw vegetables versus cooked, right? And I'm going to tell you, like, not raw at night. So the reason being is that most of us do not have high quality digestion. We just simply don't. We're constantly living in our sympathetic nervous system where we're always at this heightened state of alert. So you got to think about it this way. When your body's like fighting off bears, it's really not thinking about properly digesting food. So most of us live in too high a stress-based environment or highly distracted. We're eating in the car or we're eating at our desk while we're doing some kind of work. Well, so that sympathetic nervous system constantly being turned on doesn't really allow us to have a really good, healthy, digestive gut. It just doesn't. So if you eat your raw vegetables during the day versus at night, it gives your body more time to break those down. So when you eat raw vegetables at night, what happens is they're going to sit and ferment in your gut, leading to all sorts of bigger problems than we're going to discuss today, but a lot of gut bacteria imbalance. So quick, easy rule of thumb is raw vegetables and raw fruits in the middle of the day. If you're highly active, then this is the meal where it's okay for you to add a little bit of starch in there. But think about starches in the form of sweet potato, even a white potato, peel those. They've got anti-nutrients in the skins, right? Whole nother topic. But think about tubers and starchier forms of naturally occurring carbohydrate. Still not bread, still not pastas. The fact of the matter is they just do not have a place in your diet. They are unnecessary at best, and they are highly inflammatory at worst. So it's okay to add a little bit of starch that midday, but you want it to be naturally occurring and not a processed grain. And then as we move in to evening time, this is the time where ideally you have got up and moved a bit during the day. Hopefully you have at least gone for a walk. You've done some decent level of activity. Right? And if you haven't, well, that's a whole nother topic, right? But you now have depleted some of those muscle glycogen stores. So now it makes sense, like, okay, in order for you to top off that muscle glycogen, now in the evening is the time for you to add a little bit of starchy carb. If you really think about the way the way your body works, guys, it makes perfect sense. But you just have to have this basic understanding about how your body utilizes different foods as fuel sources. Okay? So your dinner, again, pretty basic, balanced, protein, fat, and here is your starchy carbohydrate or steamed or roasted vegetables, and leave the raw vegetables out. So if you are constantly eating a big salad at night, chances are you're disrupting your sleep, and chances are you're not breaking it down before bed, and you have these raw vegetables sitting around in your gut, totally destroying your healthy gut microbiome during the night. So keep those salads out of the evenings and stick to salads and those raw things during the day. Eat steamed, roasted, and a little starchier at night. It really is that simple, guys. And then one little last tip I'm going to leave you with is about 2 hours before bed, and especially for those of you that have some trouble sleeping, this is your time to add, and I'm talking a very small serving of starchier carbohydrate. My absolute go-to that helps me sleep like a baby is either a little bit of gluten-free steel-cut oats. I did that a lot when I was training hard, and I would just increase the portion size in order for me to have enough carbohydrates. But for most of you out there, you just need a tiny bit. And when I say a tiny bit, I'm talking like a quarter of a cup, a small amount. Gluten-free, steel-cut, so that they're not inflammatory to your gut. Those oats with a tiny bit of peanut butter on it. And when I say tiny, I'm talking tiny. Like, you got to pay attention to how much things like peanut butter you're eating. Like, you'd be surprised how much a tablespoon really is. Most people's serving of peanut butter is actually about a quarter of a cup, not a tablespoon. So I'm talking one little tiny drizzle of peanut butter over my oats, and then a half of a banana cut up. Now, the disclaimer on that is if you are someone that is extremely overfat or just moderately overfat, and your goals are weight loss, you have got to be really careful with how many carbohydrates you're eating. And you're probably consuming a lot more than you think, just simply based on the hidden sugars that are in foods that you don't even realize, as in sauces, even in your milk. There's so many hidden sugars in there. So for those of you, I would highly encourage that you track for 1 week your carbohydrate intake. Just write down how many carbs are in each of the things that you eat. And it can just be simply done on a piece of paper, or you can use slick little apps like MyFitnessPal. Right? There's one that's called Fat Secret that I like, a couple of different apps that you can track them on. Now, I am not a big fan of counting macros. I think it's useful, but I also don't think it's sustainable, and I don't think it's healthy for people that have a tumultuous relationship with food already. But paying attention and just building simple awareness around how much you're actually consuming during the day, especially carbohydrates, can be very effective. So the way to do that is keep it real simple, either on a notepad or in an app. Don't worry about your protein and fat at this point. Just simply track how many carbohydrates you're eating. The apps are helpful for that because you can actually put in the food and it'll kick out how many grams of carbohydrate that was for you. And I think it's going to be a huge eye opener for you. So do that for 5 days and then make sure that you include a weekend in there. Just for most people, your eating habits on the weekend are a little different than they are during the week. Right? So that you can have some truth and real answers in front of you about how many carbs you're really consuming. And I'm gonna leave you with this. I don't really like to give an actual number of carbohydrate that you should be eating throughout the day, because the reality is we all metabolize things differently. Some of us are more efficiently at burning off those carbohydrates, and some of us have higher activity levels than others. But some general rules of thumb is below 50 grams will get you into where you're, like, let's just call it kind of ketogenic. It's not guaranteed to get you into ketosis, because the reality is like for females, in order to do that, you really need to be under 10, which is why if you do that, you're probably going to feel pretty shitty, considering we need them for mental clarity and for good hormone balance and a plethora of other things. But 50 grams or less is what would be considered a very low carb diet. And if you are highly inactive, you sit all day and you are overly fat and you want to lose weight, that is the zone that can benefit you. However, you just got to make sure that you're not going so low that your body doesn't flip and not even know what to do with the carbohydrate once you re-eat it again. But maybe we'll talk keto another day. Okay. So 50 and below, it's like pretty good quality health there, and you're not going to end up carbohydrate dependent. But don't go too low. 50 to 100, this is kind of the sweet spot. So if you're just getting started in this, or you're moderately active, start in that 50 to 100 grams of carbs per day. I think most of you, if you track this and take my advice, you're going to be blown away by how many carbs you eat and you don't even realize it. Okay? But 50 to 100 is going to be that, like fairly easy maintenance stage where you're probably not going to put on a lot of body fat, probably not going to lose a lot of body fat either, but that's just like kind of a good maintenance range. Okay? Once we get over the 150 mark, now you're in a real easy fat storage zone. So real quick, when you have those carbohydrates going on in your system all the time, you're going to have elevated insulin levels. Now, I'm not saying that like you're diabetic. I'm saying like you think you're perfectly healthy and skinny and looking great, but you could have really high blood sugar throughout the day. And so you're constantly pumping out insulin, which causes some insulin resistance. And insulin is a storage hormone. So anytime throughout the day when your body is having to pump out insulin, it's storing. It's pumping out the insulin so it can store. And when you're storing, your body is not burning. So your body cannot burn and store at the same time. So this is where high levels, anything over 150 grams of carbs in a day, constantly keeps you in this storage zone and doesn't allow your body to burn. One thing, and I had it on my notes here, that I got to point out. This is why all of those, even like meal delivery services now, like there's a bunch of them out there, and I'm never going to name any companies by name, but that are selling you all of these really pretty acai bowls and yogurts and parfaits to start your day, guys, that is the worst shit you can be doing for yourself. And I don't care if it's being sold to you by some little skinny gal in her white yoga outfit. I'm just telling you, from a health standpoint, that is not effective. It is very counterproductive for your health, and it is not the way to start your day, no matter how much they try to sell you on it. So don't fall for that stuff. Keep it super simple. We're going to run through it just to sum up. Number 1, eat protein and fat and only greens for breakfast. 2, midday. If you're highly active, it's okay to add a little bit of starch in there. And the rest of your carbohydrates should be coming from raw veggies during this time. So protein, fat, raw veggies. That's your midday. Now in the evening, again, based on your activity level, you have your protein, your fat, and this is when you want to add your starch or your carb. Okay? You're going to replenish your glycogen, you're going to sleep well, and you're not going to store body fat when you have that starch or your carb late in the day. So pretty much everything you've ever been told, flip it upside down, and that is the truth. So last truth I'm going to leave you with today. Most of the things that are being sold to you or that have been taught to you from a nutrition standpoint and a health standpoint in the past has been tragically flawed. And I am in the health and fitness and lifestyle industry, and I don't even like to say that because unfortunately, this is an industry that is full of a lot of people that may look good, and so they think they actually have the right to teach other people about their health, or people that just truly love to work out and love food, and so they think they're somehow qualified to teach everybody else about it. And then the worst thing is that we have our government or government agencies, which are highly influenced by external factors like big pharma and big food companies. We have our government making the decisions for us and telling us what is healthy. So the truth is that shit is wrong and it doesn't work. And if you need any further proof, look at our skyrocketing rates of disease and obesity. Look at our government recommended food pyramid, which is completely flawed and can show you the numbers that as soon as that came out, that obesity rates skyrocketed. We have it wrong. Protein and fat is your friend. Processed carbohydrates are not, and it's not just sugars. It's things that are white and starchy from a box. So takeaway, protein, fats, have at them in plentiful amounts, good, high quality ingredients, and be very careful, especially you vegetarians, how many carbohydrates you are consuming throughout the day. Thanks for tuning in with me. Hopefully you learned a lot today. I would thank you from the bottom of my heart if you would go to YouTube and make sure you subscribe to my channel. And while you're there, turn on your notifications. We now release a new episode every Monday and every Thursday. And if you're listening to the audio files, be sure that you're subscribing on Apple Podcasts or where else are we at? Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. Make sure you actually subscribe. And then even a bigger favor to ask, make sure that you give us a review, a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Leave me a comment, leave me a review. I'd love to know what you're thinking and any other topics that you're interested in hearing. Thanks a lot, guys. Be healthy, be safe. See you soon.